unlike coming in the United States, if you go into Mexico without papers and they catch you, that's a year in jail. And if you go into Mexico, even as a law enforcement officer from the U.S. with a gun, many more than 1 year in jail. That's why our law enforcement officers that are in Mexico legally, that are in liaison with various military or law enforcement agencies, do not have a gun. In fact, one of them was murdered, probably with one of the guns that we're talking about that was allowed to go into Mexico, and he was not armed. So that's the deal. Their official explanation of Fast and Furious is simply a lie. What they were really doing, according to whistleblowers, was trying to change the game. They were trying to take the onus off of gun control, which has been a toxic issue for Democrats, and to make it so that there would be so many guns found at Mexican crime scenes that they could say, "Oy vey, we've got all these guns coming from the U.S., it's all our fault, all that's happening in Mexico." And that's what these cold-blooded killers at the ATF, the Department of Justice, and in the White House were willing to do in order to get some gun control in spite of the opposition in the Congress. This is really stunning, what they were willing to do. And ISA is going to have at least 2 hearings next week. My guess is he's going to have more in weeks following, because a number of ATF agents who I think are very honorable and very brave people, even though I don't think they should be, I don't think anybody should be working at the ATF. I don't think it should exist. It's not a constitutional agency. But still, these people were willing to come forth to the public, risk reprisals from the criminal syndicate that runs the ATF in Washington, and testify to the public that these horrible things were going on. They had tried to stop them. They were told to shut up. And in one case, an email had gone out to one or more of these agents saying, "You know what's going on? Hey, you're down there you're in the Phoenix office. You're just going over to Sheriff Arpaio's office. And, hey, instead of your $100,000 a year salary, you can get a $30,000 a year salary working for him, serving meals to inmates in his jail." Ho, ho, ho. So there are so many smoking guns in this. Just 2 weeks ago, a field manual prepared by the ATF called Operation Gun Run, which was the prior name of Fast and Furious, was finally brought to light. And in this field manual, page 2, it says, we've got to have policies that are consistent with that of the White House and of the Department of Justice. So what that field manual does is, we knew from one of the whistleblowers that it went as high as an assistant attorney general, this whole mad scheme. But now we know it went to Eric Holder and somebody unnamed in the White House. My guess would be, never let a good crisis go to waste, Rahm Emanuel, who is now the mayor of Chicago, who probably would have thought, you know, we got to break out of the prison of gun control being so toxic. Let's do something that'll put the blame on the American gun stores and the American gun owners, and let's do Fast and Furious. Let's do the first name Operation Gun Runner. And these guys are just beyond belief. Actually, Operation Gun Runner began under Bush, and it was, as far as we know, operating so that when a straw buyer who was legally able to buy a gun would then sell the guns to somebody that he knew was not legally qualified to buy a gun, they would make an arrest. Well, that was all in the United States. But in 2009, and apparently in September of 2009, they started letting the guns go all the way. Not because we got to have a game changer. And Operation Gun Runner wasn't doing it. Fast and Furious was going to be the ticket. And what they didn't count on was that even in an unconstitutional agency like the ATF, there are honorable men and women working there. And after a certain point, they couldn't take it anymore. And they went public at great risk to their own careers. Praise them. That's really remarkable.
It's getting more and more difficult to find those people, because the powers that be and the media, they're painting a big bleak picture. I mean, they're trying to come after the oath keepers now for what? Keeping their oath?
Well, that's a potential terrorist. There's a guy in Connecticut that, under Connecticut law, lost his guns for a year because a judge ruled that he might be a danger to self or others, because an FBI agent testified that he was a potential terrorist. Why? Well, he was one of those constitutionalists. He was participating in Edwin Vieira, a brilliant economist and a student of the militia in colonial America, had set up these committees of correspondence to try to reacquaint us in the public with constitutional ideas. And well, that's potential terrorism. You know what a potential terrorist really is, according to the administration and to that criminal FBI agent that made that testimony, because he didn't have to act on the basis of the information that he was given. He should have said, "This is nuts. I know a terrorist when I see one. He's got a rag on his head. That's who's a potential terrorist. You a Muslim? Okay, you're a potential terrorist. But an American constitutionalist? Come on. That's what the Oath Keepers are all about."
That's what this it was House Bill 1955, Senate Bill 1959, that turned Americans into homegrown terrorists. That led to the formation of the fusion centers, and pretty aptly named. They're trying to fuse the federal guidelines onto local police departments, local sheriff's departments. And it's that kind of thinking that created the SWAT team that shot down the veteran. They're also trying to demonize veterans, too.
I'm sorry, it's what?
They're trying to demonize veterans, too. They're warning, the last Homeland Security report that I've got in my book, Mystery Babylon, says, returning veterans are somehow potential terrorists. Why? Because they come back and see, if Larry... I've been painted as a anti-government, right-wing extremist for so many years. The term kind of rolls off of my back. But if our government has somehow become a communist regime, then I suppose I am anti-government.
Well, this all started from the Department of Homeland Security, headed now by Secretary Janet Napolitano, a.k.a. Secretary Magoo, who has such good vision that she's able to declare that our U.S. border has never been more secure. Right. And anybody living near the border, and that's where you live, knows that that's an amazing thing to say. Well, her idea of a potential terrorist is anybody suspected of having voted against her boss, President Barack Hussein Obama.
Oh, of course, that makes sense. We're racist. If we don't like Obama, well, then we must be racist, right?
Well, that beats having to make an argument. So since these folks can't really argue against what we're saying, they have to try to make radioactive arguments that are actually based in fact, because it's kind of embarrassing when you have to deal with facts that are not in your favor. And the best way, lawyers are taught in law school that if the facts are not on your side, then argue the law. And if the law is not on your side, then argue the facts. And if neither one are on your side, then argue against the other guy. Accuse him. So that's what they're doing. When they pull out the race card, or the potential terrorist card, anything like that, that's all they're doing. They're saying, I don't have any arguments. So I'm doing what every lawyer's been taught to do in law school. You. These people are so imbecilic. They are so stuck on stupid. They have only been educated in their Marxist paradigm. And if you look at the history of our president, his mother was a communist, a self-avowed Marxist from high school up in near Seattle. When she went to school at Mercer Island. She populated the hallway in the school that was known as the Red Hall, where all the commie-loving students and professors would be found. She was an advocate of Fidel Castro. And of course her parents weren't exactly right-wing zealots either. When she was in Hawaii, she married a Marxist. Well, I don't think she married Barack Hussein Obama Sr., but anyway, she probably conceived his child, and he was a Marxist, and he went back to Kenya and was a Marxist in the government, big-time socialist. The man that was primarily responsible for raising Obama, other than Mr. Sotero, who did marry Stanley Ann Dunham, Frank Marshall Davis, was a Marxist, an actual member, card-carrying member. I've seen the picture of it in a book by Paul Kendor, that Frank Marshall Davis was a member of the American Communist Party, which meant he would do anything that his Soviet masters would tell him to do. He encouraged Obama to go to the most left-wing school on the left coast, which was Occidental College, and from there he went to Columbia, which is an extremely left-wing college, and from there he went to Harvard Law, and I think when I say Harvard, I've said it all. And so here's a guy that's then working in New York City. Probably, my guess is that they were there at the same time. That's when he may have met Bill Ayers, the unrepentant terrorist who didn't think he bombed enough in his youthful days. And I think that's how Obama ended up going to Chicago, then to Harvard, then back to Chicago, which was very suitable for him because Chicago is a communist-run city with all kinds of socialist organizations training young people, training in community activism, which is another way of saying attacking social institutions and collapsing the society so that no good crisis will go to waste and us left-wingers will take over. And that's the background of the President of the United States. That's why he would take somebody like Janet Napolitano to be his Secretary of Homeland Security. That's why he's put actual self-avowed communists into his advisor panel, some of the czars. This guy is a radical hater of the United States, and to point all that out, and I forgot his church that he went to for 20 years, where the Sunday after 9/11, we have a recording of his sermon that chickens are coming home to roost. This is a guy that absolutely hates the United States, hates everything that it stands for, has no conceptions of limited government, of free enterprise economics. The only thing the president and the people around him can think of is, we're the ruling class, we need to have total control, we're going to make socialism work right because we're the ones. Everybody else who's had socialism, led socialist governments before, they screwed up. But we're going to do it right. We're going to be the exception because we're the ones that we have been waiting for.
The socialists that took over the Soviet Union, that we fought a Cold War with for 50 years, the socialists and the communists that took over Red China, you know, they killed millions, maybe 100 million people, it's estimated, in China.
Ruddy Rummel, a researcher and professor at the University of Hawaii, calculates 275 million killed in the last century by governments committing genocide against their own population, not in battle, not in war, but just political enemies that they invented, targets of hate, like us.
Like us.
We're
like
targeted by our government, and that's the way it begins. And then after they have an enemy, they've convinced the population is an enemy, then that justifies gun control. Give us all the guns because we can't dare risk one of them getting into the hands of the enemy.
Tell me about this law that was just, actually this wasn't even a law that was passed. We've heard a lot about it in Indiana. A judge making legislative decisions here, saying that it's illegal to resist an illegal entry into your house. Tell me about that.
Supreme Court of Indiana ruled that you have no right to resist an illegal entry. So if that Iraqi war veteran in Tucson had fired at the invading police who had a warrant, but they had no justification, he had no drugs in his house, that would have been a difficult situation to deal with. But what about where there's no warrant and where there's no crime being committed, and maybe they're acting on wrong information from an informant? That's happened, and people have been killed in their beds when they, oh, sorry, wrong address. If you shoot at a policeman there, now in Texas, you can shoot back, and if they do something like that in Texas, they can get killed. And you know what? You don't hear about this sort of thing happening as much in Texas. Hey, let's make sure we got the right address. Let's make sure we really know that that confidential informant is not just funning with us so that he can stay out of jail because that's why he's an informant, because he's a crook. Let's really make sure we know what we're doing, because don't want to get shot.
Well, Texas always had a little bit pretty good history.
A little bit better, absolutely.
You're standing up for freedom. Matter of fact, they made a movie out of called Jericho that I thought was almost predictive about a nuclear attack on the United States. Yeah, Larry, what people don't realize, I mean, when I was in grade school, they talked a lot, our teachers talked a lot about the communism. You know, Castro was taking over. That was a big deal. But they never really told us what communism was, and the communism, socialism, which sprang, which created the Soviet Union and then flowed over into Red China, was financed by the bankers, by the international bankers, by the banks in New York. We funded communism. We supported.
What they didn't explain also was that communism, it has been in operation partially in our country, or been advocated in our country by many of our presidents. Teddy Roosevelt advocated national health care. So did Franklin Delano Roosevelt. So did Jimmy Carter. So did Bill Clinton. So the socialist health care that Obama has gotten enacted into law didn't just start with him. We've had government control of agriculture. Well, they did too in the Soviet Union. And the teachers weren't teaching that oh, kids, not only is the Soviet Union a military threat, but we have an internal threat of our own. We're doing too many of the things that they do too. And when you go out and leave school and become a voter, you've got to keep that in mind. You've got to look for people who are going to vote for freedom when they get into the legislature, rather than vote for more and more socialism in our country. That's where the education system has really fallen down, because it's been taken over by socialists. Well, listen, I'm going to have to go. It's bottom of the hour, but I want to encourage everybody to look me up at gunowners.org, where we have our website and tons of information where people can sign up for an email alert. It's a freebie, and it will keep them posted on what's happening in Washington. And then we'll embed an email in there so they can send it off to their member of Congress, making it real easy to keep the heat on the Congress critters. So anyway, thanks again for having me on the show.
Thank you. We'll try to get you booked in here for next month to keep us apprised. I appreciate all the work that you're doing, Larry.
Thank you so much.
And the link and the phone number is up on my website. And if you can get your webmaster to tell people about this show, I'd really appreciate it.
Okie dokie. Thank you.
All right, sir. Thank you. God bless you. Okay. All right. Now, let's see if we can determine who's behind all of this. Where is this war on America coming from? Where is the war on Americans coming from? My guest was just Larry Pratt. You can hear the whole of the show by going to the Free American, clicking on Larry Pratt's name, hear the whole show. We missed a few minutes on the recording on Blog TV or on YouTube, wherever you're watching this. But if you go to freeamerican.com, click on Larry Pratt's name, in a couple of days you'll be moved down to the archive section, down around the middle of the page. And tell people about this. Now, Larry, I didn't ask, and I want to go because it's enough to belabor this point. You know, we are talking about the bankster control of the drugs, the bankster control of the guns, the bankster control of the police organizations that they're setting against each other. They set these SWAT teams against an Iraqi vet. It's they're setting us against each other. They're trying to create an enemy. And if you don't speak carefully on this subject, there are people out there that want us to go out and kill all of the Muslims. They send us out to kill all of the peasants in Vietnam. We bombed farms in Vietnam. We put our troops into Iraq, and I told you at the time that they were training the troops to come back here and take our guns, the same way they're doing in Iraq. That's right. It's coming from somewhere. Where is it coming? It's coming from the banks. Now, let's look at that. Let's look at this. Phil Giraldi spilled the beans in America. From Veterans Today, and we'll be talking about this more, Jim Dean said Phil Giraldi stepped out today to do his country a great service and save some honor for the American intelligence community. He put the spotlight on America's greatest national security scandal, the decades-old investment that Israeli intelligence has made in attacking its so-called American ally by stealing everything it can get its hands on. Okay, let me look here. Okay, yeah, let's just take care of this idiot. And what do we got here? How much time? We got 23 minutes remaining. All right, 23 minutes remaining. What I'm going to do is